Brutal Week 2 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll be diving into my news, notes, and takeaways kind of on this overreaction Tuesday. Tons of rumors surrounding this team, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. If you are not losing faith in this team, hit that subscribe button. We're 25 subs away from 5,700. I think we can hit it on this video, get the mojo going, heading into a very important Week 3 game against the Detroit Lions. Hit that sub button right now. Welcome to the Vikings Now. I am your host, Patrick Siepman, on this Vikings Overreaction Tuesday because, listen, that was a brutal loss and almost a heartbreaker because every time we play in Philly, there's emotions, there's intensity, and it's always a game on the schedule that I really want to win. The Vikings dropping the game yesterday, 24-7. Like I said, I'll get into my takeaways and overreactions from the game in just a second here. But Kirk Cousins, as you see that stat line, 27 of 46, 21 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. We'll be getting into him a lot and diving into what went wrong with him really in this huge standalone Monday night game. Dalvin Cook, 6 carries, 17 yards. He was pretty much non-existent the entire game, and Jalen Hurts had his way with this Vikings defense the entire game. We just couldn't match their physicality. But my number one headline on today's show, Kirk Cousins struggles. He had one of his worst performances in a Vikings uniform in a very long time. Obviously, that one Bears game in Week 17 when the Vikings had a chance to go to the Super Bowl or go to the playoffs, and he just completely melted down in that game. But the Kirk Cousins primetime narrative is alive. This was always a narrative that when it talks about quarterback wins, I think it's a fairly overrated stat when it comes to the quarterback position and just judging them. I think there's a lot that goes into it. Kirk Cousins' defenses have allowed 29.6 points per game in primetime games, and I just think yesterday he struggled, and this primetime narrative is still alive. And for going back to Week 1, PFF, I think they did a great job of breaking this down. So when the pocket's clean, Kirk Cousins had a 77.4 PFF grade. When he was pressured, he was an 84.6. When he wasn't blitzed, it was an 83.6. And then when he was blitzed, it was a 74.8. So overall against Green Bay, he was fantastic. But now if we flip it to how he played against Philadelphia, it was night and day. And I'll really focus on that blitz part. But in a clean pocket, he only had a 61 rating. When he was pressured, it was a 44.2 rating. Not blitzed, it was a 72.8. But then this. When he was blitzed yesterday, he had a 25.6 PFF rating. That just can't happen. Kirk Cousins yesterday, when he got the ball in Eagles territory, he threw interceptions on the Eagles' 9, 19, and 29-yard line. And Gannon, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, Eagles, I think they had the 3rd lowest blitz percentage over the past 2 seasons when it turns to blitzing the quarterback. But they really ramped it up when the Vikings were knocking on that door and trying to get touchdowns. Kirk, frankly, he just looked uncomfortable all night long. And when you throw those interceptions on the Eagles' 9, 19, and 29-yard line, that's just not going to be a key to victory at all. And listen, the first interception, this is what Justin Jefferson had to say. It was when Darius Slay kind of beat him on that. It was like a slant post route. He said, "That's honestly on me. I'll take that one. I've got to be flatter. If Darius Slay is going to sit on that type of route, I've got to come flatter and be in front of Slay instead of going behind him. So that's on me." Obviously, some interceptions were on Kirk last night, but that one wasn't. But Sam Ekstrom, he does a great job covering the Vikings, and he had something pretty interesting. So out of the 4 weeks that Kirk Cousins has had a quarterback rating under 20, or 5 weeks, it was Bills 2018 Week 3 when the Vikings were 17.5-point favorites in that game and lost. Packers 2019, 2 years ago the Colts game in Week 2, and then last year's Browns game in Week 4, and then the Eagles game, obviously this past Monday night. Listen, this is his 2nd game in a brand new offense. There's going to be this learning curve. And with him not playing the whole preseason, he's going to have to get some of these tough reps out of the way. Obviously, I'm not giving him an excuse for the way he played on Monday night. But you got to understand, a whole new offense coming into play, going to Philadelphia against a pretty good Eagles defense. I just think pump the brakes a little bit on Kirk Cousins. I think if it's the noon window on Sunday, I still have complete faith in him. But if it's that prime time Monday night game or Sunday night game, I don't know if I trust him. So what say you? What do you guys say? Do you trust Kirk Cousins to just win big-time games for this football team throughout the year? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm really curious because I feel like the fan base could be split 50-50 on this. Let me know down below if you trust Kirk Cousins in a big-time game. Now, offensive line. Did they get manhandled the entire game? It was all 4 quarters. The offensive line struggled. And if you look at their PFF grades, frankly, nothing to brag about. Starting with Christian Darius Slay having a 59 rating. Ezra Cleveland had a 53.4 PFF grade, giving up, I think it was a total of 6 pressures on the night. Garrett Bradbury, he got tossed around like he normally does with a 60.5 rating. Ed Ingram struggled in comparison to his week 1 start. He had a 49.5 rating. And Brian O'Neill, he was okay last night. He got beat on a couple of big third downs, which, you're paying Brian O'Neill a lot of money, and he just, he got beat on a couple of big plays with that 73.3 rating. But the offensive line, I think it's a huge contributor to how the Vikings weren't able to run the ball, had to do with the poor offensive line play. You look at the Vikings' leading rusher. It is Kirk freaking Cousins at 2 carries and 20 yards. There was no run game at all last night. Jalen Reagor having a carry for 17 yards, which I actually like that play call, a little jet sweep. And then Dalvin Cook, 6 carries for 17 yards. Madison, 2 carries for 8 yards. Overall, Vikings couldn't match the physicality of the Philadelphia Eagles. That was the one thing I had on my keys to the game. Can we match the physicality of the Philadelphia Eagles? And we couldn't. The Eagles, both sides of the football, in the trenches, dominated us. And fun fact from yesterday, C.J. Ham played only 3 snaps. I understand, Kevin O'Connell, you're a huge fan of this 11 personnel. But if you can't run the ball out of 11 personnel, and in the past, the Rams, they have been great at running the ball out of 11 personnel. The Vikings couldn't run the ball at all out of 11 at all yesterday. So really, if you're thinking about, C.J. Ham, maybe you go back to that 12 personnel with C.J. Ham as being the leading rusher. That is something you could do. I really think C.J. Ham has a chance maybe in these next couple weeks to kind of find himself back in the rotation a little bit. And his 3 snaps yesterday on offense, he was just being the lead blocker. I think you can use C.J. Ham in a bunch of flat route situations. And if you remember the Ravens game last year, he had that amazing little fade route that Cousins threw him. CJ's a talented guy. I think maybe Kevin O'Connell adjusts to this Vikings roster a little bit and run a little more 12 personnel. All right, so I want to ask you guys this. You saw 2 weeks of the Vikings offensive line. Week 1 against the Packers, pretty damn good. Week 2 against the Eagles, what are you going to do? They did not look good at all. Scale it Madden style. I want you guys to, if you guys had to give an overall for the Vikings offensive line, scale it 1 through 100. I'm going to give them a C+ probably through the first 2 weeks, probably around that 78 overall, 79 overall type of play. But the Vikings offensive line really struggled last night. Now our show is brought to you by BetUS, the best sports book in the game. And they got a great deal. If you want to go put some money on the Vikings division odds, that since they lost yesterday, they just shot up a little bit. I think they're sitting around plus 175 now. Use promo code CHAT125 if you go to chatsports.com/bet. And you use the promo code CHAT125, you'll get a 125% deposit bonus, meaning you toss $100 in, you're getting $125 back. So if you toss $100 in and you want to bet on the Vikings next week and they lose again to the Lions, you could just use the next 125, double it down on the Vikes next week. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code CHAT125. Now the Vikings run D, this has been a problem the past couple years. And I really thought with the additions they brought in with, Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson, his second year in the system, I really thought it would change. It really hasn't. Week 1, yes, we were great against the Packers, but they were still able to run the ball very effectively. I was actually a little shocked that the Packers got away from the run. Obviously, they got down in the game, but I think with A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, the Packers were really beating us at the line of scrimmage and knocking our guys a couple yards back. 18 carries, 111 yards, 6.2 yards per carry and a touchdown. And then last night against the Eagles, it was a bloodbath. It was that Jalen Hurts read option where if he's handing the ball off or he's keeping it or he'll throw it to the flat. I mean, the Eagles' rushing offense just embarrassed us. I mean, when you watch the line of scrimmage in the game yesterday, and you watch that Eagles offensive line push the Vikings offensive line back 2 yards every single play, it felt like they dominated. 163 yards total, almost 5 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns coming from Jalen Hurts. I really think this will be the Vikings' Achilles heel all year long. Going into the year, I always thought the secondary was going to be a huge issue for the Vikings, and it still can be. But I thought with the additions of Harrison Phillips and bringing in Jordan Hicks, I thought this run D was going to be a lot better. And it's something I'm very concerned about because you got the Detroit Lions coming in next week. They're going to bring a sense of physicality. And I'm just scared that the Vikings in the trenches, that's going to be where they get beat. Yes, you can have all the talent on the outside, but if you have a bunch of icing and no cake, you're not going to eat a bunch of icing. That's kind of how I pair the trenches to the skill players on the outside. I think it's going to be our Achilles heel all year long. Now we have a Vikings injury update, a little quick one. Harrison Smith, our star safety, left the game yesterday early with a concussion, and he had to go get it checked out. Harrison Smith being the downhill safety, he always, he's laying the boom 24/7. But this is what Chris Thomason, he got the quote from Kevin O'Connell on Harrison Smith's concussion. Said the way he checked out, we feel pretty strong about where he's at, but we'll go through the phasing. It's very important he gets handled medically through the protocol. It is a short week, so we'll see. It is a short week. We got the Lions coming up on Sunday at a noon game. That's going to be a very, very important division game because the Lions, they're 1-1. They win that game, they go to 2-1, and we'll fall to 1-2. Big game. But, hey, if you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you guys so much. You're a real one. I want to know where you guys are at. Type real one in the comments down below. Everybody pump the brakes. Take a deep breath. We lost to a very good football team on the road. See you guys next time. Let's go Vikes.